All right, you guys, welcome back. Thank you for joining me for yet another episode of She Yaps Her Story. Today's episode is going to be a little lighter than the rest. I mean, it still gets heavy. It's always heavy. That's life. But this one's not going to be as heavy as the last couple. I want to give you guys a little breather, My life has been a roller coaster of ups and downs, and that's going to reflect in my storytelling. Some episodes are going to be light. Some episodes are going to be really, really heavy. Nonetheless, thank you for being along for the ride. It truly means the world to me. I've been getting so many messages and so many comments and just so much support overall that I will say time and time again, thank you guys. I can't thank you enough. I'm very excited to continue on this journey and continue to be vulnerable and let you guys in to who Allegra is, how I became the woman I am today. It's not all sunshine and rainbows over here. And I hope that a lot of you, or if not all of you, really, hopefully, stick around to get into some of the stories I have to speak on about me as an adult. Because I can laugh at them now, but they are a true testament to kind of undoing your childhood traumas. Like, I have had some crash out moments, and I can't wait to talk about that with you guys. Once again, I can laugh about it now, but honestly, it's sad. It's sad to think about things as an adult and regret choices that you've made. But it's great to unpack how you got there, right? Like, I can look at these situations and correlate them back to how my childhood or things that I saw or, XYZ led me to make some of the decisions that I've made. And that's growth. So I can confidently sit here today and laugh at those moments and hold myself accountable to my poor decisions because I lived it. And being self-aware enough to know why you made those choices and prevent yourself from making them going forward is growth. With that, in this episode, I touch on relationships that have shaped me significantly in being the woman that I become. This episode, we dive pretty deep. I mean, literally and figuratively. Literally in the sense of you get to hear about me and my younger brother's relationship a lot in this episode, as well as some relationships that significantly impacted me into being the woman that I am today. No matter where I stand with these people now, I'm grateful for everyone who I speak on today. And yeah, I mean, it does get deep. I was sobbing writing this episode, like literally sobbing. Like, yeah, I mean, I know some of you guys saw it in my story, like, and it gets like that pretty much every time that I write. But this one's a heavy one for me, I think, because, yes, the stuff with Reese is heavy, but I've had 20 years to kind of unpack and heal. And some of the stuff that I speak on in this episode is fresh. So hits a little harder. With that, thank you guys once again for caring enough to still be here and being invested in me and my story and sending me your kind words and your support. It means more than you guys know. I know it's hard for me to keep up with all of the messages all the time. So if I don't respond to you right away, don't fret. I will get back to you. It's just been a lot. It's been an adjustment, honestly. I didn't think that this was going to get as much traction as it did. So now it's become almost like another full-time job. Like, I'm constantly thinking about content that I can put out for you guys and thinking about my next episode and writing things down so when it comes to my head so I can add it to the pages. And, it brings up a lot. It's not like I'm just sitting there and I'm writing and I'm fine. It brings up a lot. It brings up a lot of emotions. Happy ones, sad ones, anger. Reliving all of this has definitely taken a toll on me mentally. All of that to say that bringing you guys along on this journey and bringing it all back up is worth it, right? Because you can't heal through things if you don't address them. And putting everything down on the pages is essentially forcing me to address them. And then all of you guys who have been thanking me for my vulnerability and who have been tuning in and who have been relating, make it worth it. So, I'll cry the tears. I'll feel the feelings because that's the journey. I will be doing another Q&A at the end of this episode. I have a lot of questions this week. So, with that, let's dive in. Village of Love, A Childhood Stolen. Episode 4. Focusing on the positives for a moment. With Everett gone for the foreseeable future, I finally felt like I could breathe. For the first time, I didn't have to live in a home ruled by constant fear. The weight of his presence was lifted, and with it, the suffocating tension had become a constant in our lives. But even though fear was fading, its effects lingered. The anxiety, the people-pleasing, the constant sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop. They didn't disappear overnight. Even in moments where I should have felt at peace, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was too good to be true. My body still braced for chaos, even when it was no longer there. I still deal with this to this day. As my brothers and I adjusted to this new normal, living with my grandma, it brought a sense of stability we hadn't known in years. Finally, we could experience something that felt like normalcy. Finally, I could focus on being a child, at least for now. I miss my mom deeply, but staying with my grandma gave me a glimpse of what life could be like without the ever-present shadow of fear. We got to write letters to my mom, talk to her on the phone. Those calls were a lifeline, a way to keep her close even though she was far away. And we visited her at least once a month. Our time together was brief, but meaningful. And as a little girl, it was pretty cool to be able to miss school. Although it was to visit my mom in prison. It wasn't the same as having her with us, but it was something, and after everything we'd been through, something felt like enough. Transitioning into living with my grandma was surprisingly seamless. Her house was more than just a home, it felt like a sanctuary. Unlike the cramped condo we had left behind, we all had our own rooms, which felt like a luxury. Mine had walls painted a soft rosy pink, a color I picked out myself. Something that had made the space feel uniquely mine. Remember the fresh scent of paint lingering in the air for days, mingling with the faint aroma of my grandma's potpourri, an ever-growing collection of candles that seemed to be everywhere in the house. The backyard was massive, a paradise for kids like us. We had a trampoline where we'd bounce until we were breathless, collapsing into fits of giggles. The pool shimmered in the sunlight, its cool water a refuge on the hottest days. The faint tang of chlorine clinging to our skin, the swing set that creaked with every push, its rusted chains under the sun, and the basketball hoop stood tall like a beacon for endless games. It was as though everyone around us had come together to ensure we had every little thing we could ever dream of, trying to soften the edges of what we had been through. It wasn't just a backyard, it was a haven, filled with the kind of laughter and joy that felt almost foreign after the heaviness of our past. Starting at a new school was another fresh start. It gave me a chance to shed the shadow of being the girl whose brother died. I could just be me again, not someone pitied or whispered about. But while it was a relief to step out of that label, I miss my friends. The ones who knew me before. The ones who didn't look at me with sad eyes, who didn't treat me like something fragile, like I might break under the weight of it all. I miss their laughter, the way it could shake me out of the worst moments. I miss the familiarity of their voice, the effortless way we fit together. But one friend, Eliza, never let the distance turn into silence. She was my first best friend, a title I don't give loosely. Even as the years passed and life pulled us in different directions, she never stopped checking in, never stopped making sure I knew that I wasn't alone. This is why it's so important to raise your children to be kind to other children. Eliza didn't know it then, but the continued hangouts and phone calls and sleepovers, they made my transition to my new home, a new school, a life without my mother or my brother, easier. Her parents didn't know it either, but by welcoming me into their home for birthday parties and movie nights, sleepovers, and bonfires, they gave me something I didn't even realize I needed. A safe place where I could just be. Over there, I got to just be a kid, with no one to look after or worry about but myself. Her older sister, Casey, made things fun, always coming up with new games and ideas that made sleepovers feel like magic. We pretended we were fashion designers, draping fabrics over ourselves and having Casey sew them up with her sewing machine. Then showing imaginary runways of their upstairs hallway. We burned CDs filled with our favorite songs. And that was where my love for The Sims began. I still play that game to this day. It was the first time I was introduced to video games that weren't just something to pass the time. They were an escape. I got to build my own world, control what happened, create homes that felt warm and whole. Something I didn't always have in real life. It was the kind of fun my grandma simply didn't have time for, though no fault of her own. She was already carrying so much, keeping us fed, keeping us safe, keeping us together. But at Eliza's, I got to experience a different kind of childhood. One where playfulness and imagination weren't luxuries, but expectations. Their house was a second home to me in ways they never saw. The scent of fresh cut grass in the summer, the echoes of splashing water as we spent the entire afternoons in the pool, the warmth of bonfires where we roasted marshmallows until they melted between our fingers. All that made my hard life feel a little less hard. For those fleeting moments, I wasn't the girl carrying the grief on her shoulders. I was just a kid. What made it even more special was their home stood right next to my old school. The place I'd been ripped away from. The place where life had made sense before it all fell apart. When I spent time at Eliza's, I could still see the playground where I once played. I could still swing as high as my little heart desired on the swing set, feel the worn-down grooves of the slide, hear the distant sound of kids laughing, like an echo of my own past. And most of all, I could see Reese's tree. And yes, his name is Reese. I started off this story using fake names, but I made a post about my brother. So many people commented, sharing sweet memories of him, and he deserves to have his name heard. And most of all, I could see Reese's tree. His tree, planted there in his memory. Every time I passed by, I felt a little closer to him, as if that tree carried a piece of him that could never be taken away. It wasn't just a tree. It was home. A tether to a life I no longer had. A reminder that he was still there in some ways, still standing strong, still rooted. So even though I was stepping into a new life, I wasn't completely disconnected from the old one. Eliza, her family, their kindness, they softened the blow. They reminded me that even in the worst times, there were still places I could find warmth. Still people who made sure I didn't have to carry it all alone. For a fleeting moment, life felt normal. The air seemed lighter, like I could finally breathe. There was a sense of safety here in my grandma's house, where warmth radiated from every corner. In Eliza's yard, there were endless possibilities stretched before us. In the quiet moments by Reese's tree, where I could stand still, close my eyes, and feel like I belonged again. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was peace. So many people became our village. So many went out of their way to make us kids feel normal again. To be honest, better than normal. When I look back at this time, I realized just how blessed I was to have family that showed up, protected us, and poured love into the cracks of our broken world. My grandma did everything she could, but she couldn't do it alone. Not too long ago, I made a video asking, what does family mean to you? When I answered, I said, cousins turn siblings. And I meant that with my whole heart. My Aunt Kat and her husband Wayne stepped up for us in ways they never had to. They didn't just help, they became family in the truest sense of the word. Wayne, my uncle by marriage, but my father figure in every way that mattered. Never missed a game, practice, or a chance to show up for me. Despite already having 3 kids of their own, they made room for my brothers and me. They got us into sports, and for me that meant cheerleading, track, soccer. Every game, every meet, I could always count on looking up and seeing Wayne on the sidelines, watching like it mattered. Because to him it did. Then there was my Aunt Kat, the one who made me believe that I was Beyonce. And not just in a cute kid with a big imagination kind of way. No, she fueled that belief like it was gospel. Every year, she'd take me shopping for my big performance in the talent show, picking out an outfit down to the accessories. Her house became my rehearsal studio. Destiny's Child, Cheetah Girls, whatever song I had set my heart on butchering that year. She was front and center in the audience, screaming for me like I was headlining Madison Square Garden. But it wasn't just the performances, it was the countless sleepovers, the late night talks, the way she and Wayne folded us into their family like we had always belonged there. My cousins weren't just my cousins, they were my siblings. And to this day, they show up for me like siblings do. There's comfort in knowing that I have them. This extended family that doesn't feel that extended at all. Just mine. I owe so much of my weird, artsy, creative spirit to my Aunt Kat. If you know her, you know she's a free spirit in the most effortless, unapologetic way. She carries herself with this, I don't give a fuck about much, just don't fuck with me and mine, energy. And somehow, that kind of presence just makes you feel safe, you know? She's the only person I know who can pull off her wildly unique sense of style. Pieces you'd never expect to work together, but on her, they sure do. Growing up, her house was like a museum of cool. Dragons perched on the shelves, Chinese coins, Buddhist chandeliers, thrifted treasures she made look like designer finds. Her space felt like a world she had built just for herself, full of things that sparked joy in her soul. And I felt that magic too. So much so that I have a dragon tattooed on my thigh. A quiet homage to the woman who made me believe in embracing what speaks to you and to speak up, no matter how unconventional or whose feelings might get hurt. Aunt Kat and Uncle Wayne weren't just family, they were safety, they were love, they were home. When home didn't always feel safe. And for that, I could never put my gratitude into words big enough to hold it all. As I've said before, it took a village, and the same deep gratitude I hold for my Aunt Kat and Uncle Wayne, I also hold for my great aunt Frankie. Weekends with Aunt Frankie felt like stepping into a world of gentle predictability, something that we had so desperately lacked before. She was a woman of routine, of quiet consistency, and that alone made her presence feel like refuge. Weekends here and there, without fail, she'd pick us up, take us to Blockbuster, the highlight of my week. The rules were always the same. We could each pick out a movie, and if she was feeling extra generous, a snack to go with it. The excitement of scanning the shelves, debating over which VHS or DVD to take home, felt like the most important decision in the world at the time. Afterward, we'd go to her house, where the evening followed a comforting rhythm. Sometimes we'd play outside or take a walk, stretching our legs into the cool evening air. Then as night settled in, she'd pop a bag of buttery popcorn, filling the house with that unmistakable scent of movie night magic. We'd curl up on the couch, the dim glow of the TV washing over us as we pressed play on the films we had chosen with such care. And every single morning, without fail, we were woken up with a home-cooked breakfast. I'd stir awake to the smell of fresh coffee and crispy bacon, a scent so warm and familiar it felt like love itself. Aunt Frankie never believed in rushing the morning. She made sure we sat down for a real meal, a slow, intentional start to the day. I blame my coffee addiction on her, honestly. Every time I stayed over, I'd ask for a cup of coffee with my breakfast. Anything to feel grown. And without hesitation, she'd always say yes. She'd pour it into this clear glass mug, a cup I remember feeling so big in my hands. I wrapped my fingers around it, sipped slowly, convinced I was just like the adults. And the coffee, it was always sweet, warm, comforting, just the way I liked it. Now as an adult, I still have that cup. And when I hold it, I can't help but laugh because it's tiny. The cup that once seemed so big in my hands is so small now. And coffee, well, we all know it's bitter. That's the thing about childhood. You see the world through innocent eyes, untouched by the weight of reality. Unless, of course, the adults around you fail to protect that innocence. To a child, hopes and dreams aren't fragile things. They are as real as the ground beneath their feet. They believe in magic and endless possibilities, in a world that is kind. Because that's how it's supposed to be. Little moments, the ones we barely notice as adults, mean everything to them. Bedtime story isn't just a book, it's security, it's love, it's proof that someone's there. A cup of coffee shared with someone they adore isn't about the drink itself, it's about feeling included, feeling important, feeling seen. The world is simple, and in that simplicity there's joy. But when a child is forced to carry burdens too heavy for their small little hands, when they witness things no child should, the sweetness fades too soon. The cup that once seemed so big shrinks before their very eyes. The dreams that once felt within reach start to feel foolish. The world, instead of being filled with wonder, becomes something to survive. That's the difference between a childhood protected and a childhood stolen. In one, a child gets to believe that life is good, that love is certain, that they are safe. In the other, they learn too soon that coffee is bitter, the world is harsh, and that innocence is not given, it's a privilege. One that, thanks to my village, I got to experience, even if only for a moment. And for that, for every movie night, every home-cooked breakfast, every warm cup of coffee that made me feel special, I'm endlessly grateful to my Aunt Frankie. She made me feel safe. She made me feel loved. She made me feel like a child when life tried to make me grow up too soon. I think about myself now as a woman. I have a lot of people to thank for the way that I am. As beautiful as that time period was, it wasn't without its complexities. For all the laughter, love, and stability we were surrounded with, there was also darker moments quietly treading their way through our lives. Moments that would leave their mark in ways I couldn't fully grasp at the time. What felt like a season of healing and joy was also shadowed by challenges that would test us all. Both my brothers began facing health issues that would ripple through the family. My grandma, the anchor of our world at the time, needed major surgery. And there were visits to my mom where the warmth and safety I knew in my grandma's felt worlds away. Looking back, it was a time of stark contrasts. The light of a childhood filled with love and support, and the shadows of uncertainty, illness, and heartbreak. It's hard to believe how those realities coexisted, but they did, shaping the memories I carry and the person I've become.
But had I not, because he was in such a rapid decline, that had he not gone down, he would have gone into the diabetic coma and could have died.
My brother Micah was my best friend, and I mean best friend. You hear stories about brothers and sisters fighting, bickering over the dumbest things, and sure, that was us sometimes. But more often than not, we were two peas in a pod. When everything else in our family felt broken, our bond was the only thing that ever felt whole to me. I loved Jay too, obviously, but with him being special needs, our dynamic was just different. With Micah, it was effortless. If he was outside shooting hoops, I was right there, rebounding the ball, or just sitting on the pavement watching. If he was in his room playing GameCube, I was on the floor, chin in my hands, watching. Always watching. He didn't even have to ask me if I wanted to be there. I just was. That's how close we were. We were only 22 months apart. Close enough that people used to mistake us for twins. Maybe that's why I always felt this unmistakable urge to protect him. Was it big sister instinct? Was it because I remembered things he was too young to fully understand? Maybe both. But I knew, even when we were just kids, that I would do anything, and I mean anything, to keep him safe. At one point, I don't think there was a soul on this earth who understood me the way Micah did. Even when we got older, even when the teenage moods and life changes tried to wedge a space between us, we always found our way back. I remember one year he got to bring an extra person to Kalahari for his birthday. His options were to bring another friend or me, and he chose me. That's who we were. That's what we had. But God, I worried about him. It wasn't just about keeping him safe physically. I wanted to shield him from everything. From pain, from disappointment. From the world that had already shown us how cruel it could be. I remember when he got his first girlfriend in high school, I was stressed. Not because I didn't want him to have that, but because I knew what it felt like to let somebody in and get hurt. And I couldn't protect him from that. I wanted to put him in a bubble, keep him safe forever. I thought I had to protect him from the world. I never thought I had to protect him from himself. That's the one thing I couldn't save him from. And maybe in a way that's what broke me the most. The one person I spent my life trying to protect, I lost. Not to death, not to distance, but to something even harder to name. A wedge neither of us asked for, caused by different points of view around unresolved traumas. One that we never imagined would be here. Some of my best laughs, my best memories, my best moments, they all have Micah in them. No matter how much time passes, no matter how much life pulls us apart, those moments are ours, and no one can take them away, not even him. I have his name tattooed on my arm. I got it because we were so close I wanted to keep him with me always. Not just in memory, not just in the past, but on me. Carved in my skin like he's carved in my soul. Because no matter what's happened, no matter what's been said, no matter how much time or distance has stretched between us, he'll always be my little brother. And I'll always be grateful for the relationship we did used to share. We did everything together. But there was a time when we had no choice but to rely on one another. When the world felt even smaller, and it was just us. I remember those days vividly. The ones when Mom was locked up. We were still just kids, left to navigate a world that suddenly felt colder and heavier. As much as I tried to shield him from the weight of it all, life had its own way of forcing him to grow up too soon. It was during that time that everything changed. It was a hot summer day, the kind where the air feels thick and heavy, where sweat clings to your skin before you even move. My cousins and I were outside running barefoot through the grass, laughter ringing through the air like music. Something felt off. It didn't matter how much fun I was having. If Micah wasn't there, it didn't feel right. I marched inside, expecting to find him playing video games or sneaking snacks from the kitchen, but instead I found him lying on the floor, pale as a ghost. His skin was damp with sweat, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. "Come play with us, Micah." I nudged his arm, trying to shake him from whatever weird mood he was in. "I can't, I don't feel good," he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. His words were sluggish, his face drained of color, but I was a kid, I didn't understand. I just thought he was being dramatic. Maybe he was tired or faking sick to get out of running around in the heat. When he refused to get up, frustration bubbled inside me. "Fine, whatever," I huffed, stomping back outside. I didn't know. I couldn't know. I didn't understand that at that moment, Micah wasn't just tired. He wasn't just sick. He was fighting for his life right in front of me. The diagnosis came fast and hit even faster. Type 1 diabetes. And suddenly life wasn't just about childhood games and late night laughter. It was about survival. It was about insulin shots, blood sugar tests, and counting every carb and worrying if he'd wake up okay in the morning. I remember the fear settling in my chest like a stone, heavy and unmoving. Not only because I had just lost a brother, and this is making it far too real that I could lose another. I didn't understand what diabetes meant, that it was so controllable. I was scared. And because for all the things I thought that I had to protect him from, the chaos of our past, the instability of our previous home, the weight of things we'd been through, this was something that I couldn't fight off, that I couldn't fix. Micah was just a kid. Both of his parents were in prison. Our only support was my already overwhelmed grandma and the small village of people around us. Jay already had a long list of medical challenges, daily medication, sensory issues, dietary restrictions, even surgeries. And now Micah too? How was our home supposed to handle this? How would he handle this? My mind spun with questions I couldn't shut off. Would he still get the attention and support he needed? How could I help him feel less different? He loved basketball. Could he still play? Would kids at school make fun of him? What if his blood sugar dropped too low during recess? Will someone be there to help him? Would the school nurse know what to do? What if he played too hard? Would they have candy for him? Would his teacher let him have a snack if he needed one? What if I forgot how to test his sugar? What if I couldn't remember how to use his emergency shot in a crisis? What if? I was 7 at the time, and I couldn't turn my little mind off. And if I felt like this, I couldn't imagine what he was going through. He was only 5. Life had already stolen so much from us, and now it was demanding even more. We had no choice but to adapt. Our eating schedule revolved around his blood sugar levels, 3 meals a day, a snack every 2 hours, no exceptions. The fridge transformed, stocked with zero-carb snacks, while the outside became wallpapered with eating charts, insulin schedules, and diabetes brochures. Everything revolved around keeping Micah and his blood sugar stable. It was a lot for all of us. With my grandma in our village, we found a way to settle into our own version of normal. At least, as normal as life could ever be for us. Just when I thought I could finally breathe once again, just when I thought we had found some kind of stability again, it happened. A scream tore through the house. It was me. Grandma! Grandma! He's not answering me. He won't look at me. My voice was raw, cracking under the weight of panic. My hands were shaking as I grabbed him, as if shaking hard enough would force him to come back. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. My grandma burst into the room, her eyes wild with fear. Jay, honey, can you hear me? Nothing. No response. His body was still, too still. My breath came in ragged gasps, my vision blurred, my chest ached with the force of my sobs. I'm calling the ambulance, my grandma yelled, already reaching for the phone. Allegra, take Micah upstairs. I obeyed, my legs moving before my mind could catch up. Micah's hand was in mine. I dragged him up the steps, his grip trembling in mine. I swallowed the terror rising in my throat, trying to be strong for him. Just play the game, Micah, I murmured, my voice shaking. It's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. But outside, the distant sound of sirens split the air, growing louder, sharper, screaming through the night like a warning. Deep down, I knew nothing could ever be normal for us. Okay, so before I do the Q&A, I want to do a little debrief because you guys said you liked that last time. So, which once again, thank you for the feedback. Anything you guys think that I can do that's more engaging or that you want me to add into this, let me know. I'm open to suggestions. I'm so new to this, so the only way to make it better is by getting feedback. So, I think the overall theme of this episode is relationships. You never know how much you can impact somebody's life. You never know what somebody is going through. So just being kind goes a long way. There are so many people who I feel like love to be nasty. And it's like, and not to be funny, but like, You could literally be someone's 13th reason. Like, you don't know what people are going through. With that, though, you also have to know your self-worth. And that's something else that I wanted to touch on, where I said, I think, like, when I was visiting my mom, even though I was just visiting her in prison, it was something, and something was enough. And I think that a lot of people do this so often, right? Where because you've experienced something so negative, you settle. I've done it myself in relationships. Well, he's not cheating on me, so it's fine. He's not cheating on me, so it's fine. He's not putting his hands on me, so it's fine. I feel like far too often we get stuck in these situations because we're comparing it to worse situations that we've been in. And newsflash, it's not enough. It's not enough. Just because you've experienced worse doesn't mean if you experience a tad bit better that it's enough. And that's something else that I wanted to touch on. I could go on about toxic relationships for days. And like I said in the beginning, you guys will get to, I'm excited for the day because I have my fair share of stories and we'll get there. I could go on for, listen, you ever get me on the phone when I'm turned up, when I'm revved up? Yeah, I hope you got a couple hours. Cause I'm a pro yapper, okay? I didn't name myself She Yaps for funsies. Like, I'm a pro yapper. Ask about me. But I think far too often these toxic relationships stem from such a want for it to be better. And because it's this much better, we accept. We accept. And better doesn't mean enough. I want to be very clear about that. Better does not mean enough. If you find yourself in a situation where you're questioning if it's good for you, if you even have to question it, then the answer is probably no. And I've had this problem myself. I feel like I get way too attached to people because they're nice to me. And I've had a lot of people who weren't. So for me, I'm like, oh, they're great. They're nice to me. But it's like, babe, the bar's on the floor. They're doing the bare minimum. Get it together. Like, what are we doing? So that's just something that when I was reading it, I'm like, you know what? Let's touch on that. I will stop yapping now and answer the questions that you guys want me to answer. So let's get into it. Okay. This one was a comment on I think my last episode. Does your mom and her boyfriend see your kids, and how do you feel about it? So my mom, I've had a relationship with my mom this whole time up until probably around July, because my mom has left and returned and left and returned and left and returned. 20 years worth of doing that, right? So like every time she left, her and I would get close. I would value my relationship with her. I would literally like be her bestie. We'd talk on the phone for hours. We'd hang out, and then he'd come back in the picture, and it's like, here we go again. Got to the point where she was broken up with him for a year this last time, and her and I did get pretty close, and we did work on our relationship, so I thought. But, and here's the thing. I don't hate my mom. I wish that I could understand her. But I can't. And I don't. And I can't fathom it or wrap my head around it, and I never will. I wish that her and I could have a relationship. I long for that. I remember when I used to work in retail, and I would see mother-daughters doing Christmas shopping together, and I'd be like, oh, wish I had a normal dynamic with my mom, but it's just not. It's just not normal. And I do feel like I have some anger, not even really towards her, towards the situation, because it's like, wake up, wake the fuck up. What are we doing? I literally want to wake the fuck up, actually, because it's just not the same for her. She's just been in it so long that she can't even think clearly. And it's sad, really. Like, I love my mom, and I want better for her. I wish she wanted better for herself. All of this to say, I watched that situation, and I've gotten myself into some toxic situations, and every single time I've gotten out, it was because I refused to be like her. So maybe if I didn't have that example, I would still be there. You never know. So, everything happens for a reason. I just choose to be removed from it. Like, I'm not going to be disposable to somebody when, oh, I'm not in this relationship, so now I care about a relationship with you. And then when I am in this relationship, now I don't. And I'm not going to put my kids through that either. And then the topic of him being around them, obviously, like, I stand firm on fuck no. Excuse my language, but fuck no. But yeah, that's that. How am I mentally? Or how are you mentally? How do I find the time to do this with my kids and work? I don't sleep. It's hard, I need to get on a routine. How I'm doing mentally, I would say, like I said in the beginning, this brings up a lot for me. So some days are hard, especially when I'm writing, because I'm getting it all out, but I do think it's needed. Like, I feel like you can't move on from things if you're not letting it out. And I've noticed myself feeling more calm. Like, if something that used to get me really riled up gets brought up around me, I'm like, because I've already gotten it out. So there's pros and cons for sure. It does take a toll on my mental because I'm revisiting all of my trauma, but at the same time, it's necessary. So I'm thinking about the bigger picture. Like, okay, I might be down bad, reliving it, but I'm getting it out. So next time I have to talk about it or relive it, it might not affect me as much. Thanks for asking that, by the way. How many details did you know as a child, and what are you finding out as an adult? So obviously, when I was a child, I lived it, right? Like, when you're 5, you can remember things. Like, so some stuff I remember and I lived through. The traumatic things, obviously, you remember more than the positive things. So I knew myself based on what I witnessed, but it's always been explained to me in a minimized fashion, right? Oh, it was an accident. Oh, it was an accident. Yeah, he just whooped him too hard. Yeah, he was raised to discipline kids that way. Just let's make the abuser the victim. It was minimized. It's bullshit. I read the autopsy report for the first time when I wrote about it to you guys. And to be honest, I'm trying not to get emotional. To be honest, I wish I never read it. Every day since I've read it, it has crossed my mind. And every day since I've read it, I can't even. I know I touched on it in the last episode. But yeah, my brother was a child who was special needs. So he was already smaller he was 9, and he was probably the size of a 6-year-old. And I'm not going to go into the gruesome details because I don't want to. I can't even say it all out loud without getting physically sick. But it's far worse than what I've ever been told and than what I've ever remembered. So the fact that, this ties back into my mom, the fact that somebody could be with somebody after reading and here's the thing, right? She wasn't there. But an autopsy is facts. Like, these are facts. These injuries on this child are facts. This is a certified document, a factual document, right? You cannot argue with facts. So it infuriates me, not even for myself, but for my brother. There's no world where that's justice. There's no world where my brother deserves that. There's no world where it's acceptable. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. If I could have the motherfucker retried, I would. I sure would. So that's that. So these ones are from my Instagram. I got some really good ones on here, so thank you for those of you that submitted those, and thank you guys for being so responsive and so engaged. Like, I say it every day, 26 times a day. I am forever grateful for you guys and your support. So, first question. What things would you like to tell others who may be going through the same thing as you? The only person who can bring you peace is you. And to be honest, it took me a long time to realize that. Like, I'd be tolerating stuff, and sending myself into an emotional spiral to keep these relationships. And finally, I'm like, why? Why am I destroying my mental health to keep this relationship? Why am I destroying my mental health and not getting myself the help that I need? And that's the thing, like, you're not losing by helping yourself. You're not losing by going to therapy. You're not losing by learning how to process your emotions. You're not losing by being humble enough to reach out to people who actually love you and ask for help. Like, you don't have to handle everything yourself. You don't have to carry it alone. And I think that oftentimes when you're going through something, especially things as unique as I've experienced, I'm like, nobody understands. Which in a sense is true, of course. They're not going to understand what you went through exactly to a T. But a lot of the feelings are similar, right? There's a million different scenarios, a million different walks of life, a million different traumas that all bring on similar feelings. And although people have not gone through what you have gone through or seen what you have seen, the aftermath is similar, right? Which is a battle with yourself to be different. Different than your story, different than your trauma. So ask for help and do things to better yourself. Stop drinking. Stop relying on substances to heal you. That's not putting in any work. That's slapping a Band-Aid on it and letting it manifest. You have to do the work, especially if you're carrying some heavy shit. This is heavy shit, but this is my life. This is my reality, and it continues through adulthood. I finally now am feeling in a place with myself where I'm like, I can confidently look at you guys in this camera and say, I will never put myself in the positions that I have before, because now I know better. Now I attract better. Now I don't tolerate anything because I've done the work. And I know it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. And once again, it's taken me 27 years, a million fucked up and toxic situations to get to where I am. Therapy. Once again, I'm sober. I'm not going to be sober forever, right? But there needs to be a balance. Like, if I want to go out and have a drink with friends, okay. Shouldn't be blacking out at 27 years old, this big ass age. Like, that's the reality, right? So control what you can control. Ask for help. Ask me. Shit. I'm here for you guys, and I've said that all the time. So yeah, goal you're wishing to accomplish while you still speaking truth about your story. My goal is to, and I know I say this all the time, to be different. Like, create a difference in the content people are consuming. Some of you guys are here just for the tea, but which, like, I feel you. But life is so much bigger than social media and content, and people go through real life shit. And some people don't even have anybody to talk to about it. So I want to my goal is to create a community where people can tune in and it helps them. It makes them feel better. They feel understood. They hear me and they're like, same. Or they hear me and they're like, damn, like, that hit different. Like, I feel that. Once again, I'm not expecting your guys' story to be the same as mine, but I know the feelings that I speak on, some of you probably feel because of different circumstances. And I want to create a community for those of you who are healing, who are on a healing journey. And my goal was to not only do that, but to get my brother's story out there. I mean, how many times do I have to tell you guys? I am pissed off. I am pissed, and I'm allowed to be pissed off. And that's another thing too. You need to feel your feelings. You are allowed to be pissed off. You are allowed to be sad. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to feel your feelings. And I'm pissed. You want to know whose fault that is? His abuser and the system. And I'm passionate about getting his story out there. I'm passionate about systemic injustices, not even just my brother. That's something that I've always been passionate about because it's bullshit. I just saw somebody got 24 years for selling somebody fentanyl and they passed away, but brutally beating a child to death equates to a plea deal of 15 years with 2 nonviolent crimes, making it easy for you to get a job. Bullshit. So my goal is to get his story heard. Listen, you can be walking free, great, but you're not going to easily walk free. I'm going to get it out there. And I don't even need to say his name, and I won't say his name. Y'all know how to use Google? How has talking in the open about your past made you feel recently? Honestly, I've been mentally, it's just a lot. And like I just said, when somebody asked my mental health is, I mean, I'm not going to spend too much longer answering this question because it's so similar to the other one, but just hits. This is my real life. Like, this is really my life. This is really my feelings. I add a little razzle dazzle in there, but for the most part, all of this is like real. So of course it's heavy, but I chalk it up to the mission, what I'm trying to accomplish, what I'm trying to do, and I chalk it up to my healing. Like, it's going to be a journey. Talking about it is the best way to get it out. And yes, of course, like, talking about it is going to make me emotional, of course. Think that in time, you'll be able to heal from your journey that you've had to endure. I think that healing isn't linear. People say that to me. I've gotten that comment to me all the time. Healing isn't linear. Some days I feel great. I'm like, oh, I'm so healed. Such a healed girl, And then some days I don't want to get out of bed. Like, it's just, healing isn't linear. Like, I don't think that there's ever a time where anyone will fully be healed from anything, and life goes on, right? So I can be healed from this and then this happens. I can be healed from this and then this happens. So there is no world where like anyone ends fully healed. It's a constant journey. I know that probably sounds, you're probably like, oh, like, girl, what the fuck? That's life. Like, you have to make the best out of what life deals you. And I think that you can get to a space where, like, you can be better about how you react to things, or be better at your viewpoint, or how you look at things, or, like, there's self-work to be done, but there's never fully healed. Lives. You're always healing from something. So it's a journey. And that's really it. I mean, I look at myself 10 years ago, and I was a different person. Those of you who know me know, like, different person. And that's healing. So, do you ever think that you'll rekindle the relationship with your mom? I think the only way that would ever happen is if she exited the toxic relationship that she's in and got some therapy. And I think that we'd have to do therapy together as well. So I got a question for last week's episode, but I had already been editing when I received it, so I figured I'd throw it in this one. But it was something along the lines of, like, have I ever spoken to my brother's murderer, or do I want to, or something like that. And yeah, I have had the pleasure of speaking with him. Long story short, I found out that she was back with him. I can always tell she acts different. You always know, right? Like imagine like when your homegirl's back with her toxic ex, like, You know when it happened. So imagine that, but it's your mom. So I knew. And I went over her house one day and I was pissed because, I mean, I guess I can like compare this to like having a addict parent, right? Like your parent is clean and you guys are rekindling your relationship and your parent is clean and you're proud of them and you're building a relationship and you're moving past the pain, and you catch them using again. You're gonna be hurt. You're gonna be sad. You're gonna be angry. You're gonna wonder, why am I not enough for you to kick this habit, right? It's very similar. So, yeah, I mean, I went to her house. He was there. I knew he would be there because I know when he's back around by how she acts. And I knocked on the door and I was ripping her a new one. And he came to the door and started running his mouth, as he does best. And yeah, was arguing with me, tried to slam the door in my face, all of the above. I mean, honestly, it's comedy. Like for me, it's like you literally had to beat a child to feel like a man. And you're sitting here arguing with me, a 5'4" woman that's 26 years old. Like, what do you, like, what, you're tough? Like, I don't get it. And that's why I think it's like, it's like when people ask me, oh, does he have remorse? Fuck no. No, he knows every time that he comes around, it destroys my relationship with my mom. He's even went as so far as to tell my mom, like, you guys are weird, you're too close, you talk on the phone too much, like has a problem with me and my mom being close. And why do you think that is, right? Because when there's somebody who's an abuser and they're narcissist and they're toxic, they want to isolate you from the people who are going to try to wake you the fuck up. So of course, I'm the enemy. It's cool, don't worry about it. I definitely, cooked him up. If you know me, I'm pretty good at that. I'm pretty quick with the comeback. So he got cooked up, but I wish he was like still in prison. So, cooking him being in prison, it's like, I'd rather have this. It didn't really do much for me, as far as like my anger towards him. So that's really that. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and please don't forget to like or comment, and don't forget to subscribe. You guys are really engaged, really supportive. I'm trying to get this story out there, not only for me, but for my brother, and not only for both of us, for you guys. I want to create a community, and I can't do that without the little push into the world, So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, comment your questions down below. Comment your comments, like, how did this episode make you feel? What did you like? What didn't you like? What did you relate to? What do you want to see next time? What do you hope I talk about? What do you want me to touch on? These are all questions that I'd love for you guys to answer in the comments below. And once again, thank you for being here. She Yaps episode 5 will be out next Thursday. And I'm going to stop putting a time on it because I never meet the time. So just know, next Thursday, at some point, it'll be a surprise. If you want to know when, subscribe and turn your notifications on, and you'll get a notification when it's up. So, all right, you guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, if you're listening. Till next time.